Watch the stream. We're back. We're back. We're live. It's the second stream. And I was playing the audio through my laptop as well. So we'll just stop doing that. So it's back to OpenTTD streaming. We have Tyler, Timberwolf, we have Frosch, and then True Brain is behind the scenes, but he wouldn't come on the stream this time. We're going to talk about content. We're going to talk about mods. Pretty much straight into Tyler. What have you made?
Well, I get to go first. Okay.
You go first.
Yeah. So I'm probably the newest OpenTTD player here. I've only been playing since 2017, and I've only been involved in the community. Like my first post on TT forums is like last year.
So you're quite a newbie.
What's that?
You're quite a newbie. You're like the junior in the room.
I am. Yeah, I never played the original game. But yeah, I got started. Camnet posted on Reddit that someone they were looking for help to run the title game competition for 1.10, and I said, yeah, I can do that. So I volunteered, and then shortly after that, I was reading Quast's thread about his beach tile set. I thought, wouldn't it be cool if that was an industry? And so I decided to make it an industry, which is probably one of the harder industries to start out with, because I had to figure out tile slopes and multiple orientations and all sorts of fun things. But I figured that out, and then I kind of jumped into improved town layouts, which is it's my favorite thing that I've made. I'm currently working on, spoilers, currently working on a subtropic version of it for release at some point. Not today. And then I've also gotten into like drawing sprites. I'm working on Danish trains using Timberwolf's kind of GoRender pipeline to build 3D voxels, kind of like building in Minecraft, and then rendering those into OpenTTD sprites. So I can make trains with no artistic talent. It's great.
Good, thanks. We haven't disagreed about anything yet.
We'll have to find something.
Save it up. We'll find something.
I'd say I would pick you up. The voxel pipeline does require artistic talent. I think you're selling yourself short on that one.
See, we've got a disagreement. What's the disagreement count so far? Oh my word, 2. Okay, Tyler, did you make anything else?
Yeah, I made
no pressure.
A bunch of things that are not completely finished yet. I mean, they're out. You can play them. I made a canal boat set inspired by pre-trains in the UK canals. But they currently kind of just float along without any horses. The horses are invisible, and they're ships, so they kind of float through each other whenever they pass. So at some point, I'm gonna probably turn that into a road type vehicle set, but I haven't gotten around to it yet.
It's much easier to animate invisible horses.
It sure is. Oh, I made an industry set too. How could I forget about that? Mostly a lot of experimental stuff that I was curious, like, what would happen if you did this in an industry set? And some things I learned are really cool, like putting secondary industries in towns I really like. Other things I discovered, there's a reason why FIRS doesn't do this. Like having really generic cargoes that you use cargo distribution to like send to the right places was an interesting idea to have like a goods distribution network, but it doesn't really work that well. It's not super interesting. So it was mostly an experiment, although if you want to play it, you can. It's improved town industries. I actually found out I had a great time introducing new players to OpenTTD with using it because it's simpler than FIRS, but it adds some fun things like, okay, now you've made a train that goes to the iron mine. Well, okay, now iron mines accept workers, so now you can make a bus that goes to the iron mine, and that kind of like building in stages. It worked really well for teaching both of my younger brothers, who are teenagers. They're like 10 years younger than me.
Cool.
They both really caught on to that style of playing. And now they've, of course, moved on to first,
Yeah.
as everybody does.
My kids hate furs, but anyway, story for another day. So, Timberwolf, how's the dogs? Are they still asleep?
They are downstairs. My partner has been on sort of. Well, she said I will try to keep them quiet, but one of the Henry, she says, he has emotions. She says if he decides to have emotions, I take no part in this. So if you hear whining, that's Henry having emotions. And as I say, we don't torture them. You can at least see on video now that we're not torturing them. He's just.
If you hear whining from my end, it's my kids fighting over Minecraft. Someone will have stolen someone's diamonds, and my wife's gone to the park to get drunk. So, solo parenting. I'm just doing a live stream. It's all fine. What have you made, Timberwolf?
So just a question in between. Do you all have beta testers at home?
Oh, good question. I get feedback. I don't know if I get good testing, but I get advice from my kids.
I just YOLO my stuff out on the world. I see what happens. Usually it was you've broken some parameter that only 3 people use, but never mind. So what have I made? So I'm gonna like Tyler said, I almost have the opposite experience, which is that I started in my transport token experience started in 1994 when Electronics Boutique in Woking were giving out demo discs, and I'm fairly sure on that statement most of those things don't exist anymore. 1994 doesn't, demo discs certainly don't. Electronics Boutique I don't think does, and Woking has been a while since I went there. So in 2016, some many years after that, I suddenly realized I'm actually really annoyed about the fact that towns just grow uncontrollably. So I made a little script called Villages is Villages. And that I just wrote out, I thought, yeah, let's stick it on bananas so it's easy enough for people to get. And then I kind of left it. And I kind of thought, well, I've made a little contribution. I use this. And I remember logging into bananas for something else and going, I went, 50,000 people have downloaded this thing. I was like, just what? Really? I've made a thing that people enjoy, and off the back of that's we released. I started getting into doing NewGRF, and then so you've had Timberwolf's UK road vehicles, Timberwolf's UK trains, Timberwolf's roads, Timberwolf's tracks, and Timberwolf's stations. It's surprisingly easy to find my stuff. You just search for Timberwolf. So yes, that's my list of things. And I think the other thing that I've perpetrated on the world has been, of course, the Go render pipeline, and the other wonderful thing, which is the very controversial 2x sprites, and sitting in sort of neither the kind of single original Foster style, which I think just about everybody else here uses, or the kind of the lovely 4x rendered sort of Z base and CZTR stuff.
Good.
Well,
Thanks.
it's interesting. You've kind of you haven't undercut your own 2x things, but one of the contributions to some recent release of the game we agreed we weren't going to talk about was you created a new setting that limits sprite resolution. So if I want to play with Timberwolf trains and only see the 1x zoom regular sprites, I can do that.
Indeed. And the great thing is about that setting, right, is the hardest thing to program in that was, what do you call this and how do you describe it? The code was simple. The code took about 5 minutes, but if you go back and you look at that pull request in OpenTTD, or develop it all in public, everybody says, this is my opinion, this is what I think. Most of the discussion is, how do you describe this thing that it makes sense to players? And I think we eventually settled on its highest resolution sprites to use. So you could either use 1x, 2x, or 4x from your sets.
Remember, even when you submitted it, a lot of people had, like, other developers had no idea what it was, what it did. I knew instantly because I'd been watching you get that request on the forums. Like, every 7th post was, hey, could you offer this in only 1x zoom? Because I don't like the way that these sprites look together. And then you discovered tell these people to make their own 2x zoom ground set, and they'll leave you alone.
This is brilliant. Yes. So this I am like a one-person campaign for let's increase the zoom level. And I think and Andy is probably a bad person for my kind of my mental health and my spare time and anything else, because Andy is just like Timberwolf base set when, which is a strong strong sort of implication of.
Use it. I just like to encourage. I won't use it. I'm 1x all day long. But encouragement is good, right? People should make things.
I'm just a bad person because I just mix.
Yeah, so to get back to this description, so when you made this PR, I still remember it. I actually had to look at the source code, so at the diff, to figure out what it tried to do. Yeah, but a regular player probably doesn't do that, so they need a description.
You've done what many developers I've worked with usually fail to do, which is you've actually understood my code. So, right.
We should move on to frosch. So what have you made, frosch?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
also, this time we can see frosch. In the last stream, frosch was kind of, most of you won't remember Syndicate, the classic game from the 90s, but frosch like a Syndicate character. We were using a webcam from 1994.
Yeah, so I bought a new webcam, yeah. Specifically only for this stream, for nothing else. So what you now see on screen is actually the first thing I ever did for OpenTTD. So that was like in 2006, and that was like my first contact in trying to get something coding working. That was my first interaction with open source. Previously, I only worked in my home with other random stuff, and I kind of wanted to get into OpenTTD coding. And then I just picked some random idea. I knew that it probably wouldn't turn out because, well, you first have to learn the code. But I wanted to learn the code with something that was fun. And so the first thing I actually wrote was this tile-based airports thing. So that you can, instead of build these predefined airports, you could build it from individual tiles. So, but actually what you see on the screenshot, that is about how far I got. Yeah, and then but then I decided, well, the rest is for someone else. And then I got into other projects. So, and then the next thing I actually started was to get into tooling for writing NewGRF. So let's see how long the leg takes. So the first tool I wrote was actually GRF to HTML. And that is a tool to visualize NewGRF. I think you still don't see it on screen.
Stream lag. It'll come up. It was a very important tool.
Yes, because you were saying you got your kind of start with that, didn't you?
Yeah, I learned to code by reverse engineering I can't say it out loud, EGRVTS. And then I reverse engineered Pika's industry set. And GraphQL, it puts it all in your browser. And you just click. And you can follow the chains. So good.
Yeah, so this tool back then essentially decompiled a GRF file and created an HTML file from it. So, and I used that essentially for myself to learn how GRF works. But actually, another lot of other people used it for the same thing. So they used it to debug their own GRF. So usually back then when you wrote a GRF, you wrote it and then you tried it in game whether it worked or not. And when it did not work, you had no idea what was going on. And yeah,
there were no debug tools. There used to be no debug tools for Graph. It was horrible. So bad.
Yeah, so there was some Win to console for some things, but there was nothing in game to view something. You just tried it, and when it worked, you were happy, and if it didn't work, you were not happy. Yeah, so this kind of links all the things. I think the lag is too bad to actually show anything particularly. Yeah. Okay.
Lag.
Yeah. So you can kind of click through this GIF and see what is going on. So this later got out of fashion because when we started with developing NML, kind of this raw view of the GIF became less useful because it was the output of the compiler and not the original source that you did write. However, I also implemented some GIF myself. And kind of the first GIF that I released was kind of a troll GIF. Yeah, so there were all these complaints that industries close all the time just after you connected them. And I had just never had this problem in my game. So when I connect an industry, then a server is pretty fastly, and then they never closed on me. And that was like very disproportional to the amount of complaints about industries closing all the time. So I wrote this troll GF, which essentially completely disabled all of the economy. So it actually did nothing. So for me, it whipped out the heart of OpenTTD. It turned it into like nothing. But actually, there were a lot of fans who liked it. I mean, the first reply here is kind of weird. This is a single guy who just signed up for this post, and that was the only post ever made. So probably it was a regular who just wanted to jump on the train and make other fun. Yeah, but anyway, otherwise it was kind of successful. Yeah. So so that is mostly what it is on GRF.
Did you make bare white ground?
Yeah, I also did bare white ground. That's for the to make
that's a vital tool. That's so useful. And you made alignment graph.
Yeah, mostly debugging stuff. And I probably was involved with V something and with Andy and others authors to make their graph. So yeah, so I also released one single game script, which is called Silicon Valley. I still claim it is actually the only game script which actually has some kind of story, but it is displayed directly on startup, and then you get a funny text with a random cargo, and depending on the cargo type, it can be different types amount of funny. That's kind of similar to the town names. Yeah, some town names are boring, and other town names are kind of weird. Yeah. Yeah, so that's basically what I do in modding, but mostly I do
Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley is one of my favorite game scripts. There aren't that many. That's one of my favorites. I keep wanting to make Silicon Valleys, but I can't game script, which we'll talk about later. I just don't get it. I don't get game script. Does anyone get game script?
So this game script essentially implemented as goal how I always played OpenTTD. So I always started connecting some industries, and then I extended my network as more. And there was kind of never a point to connect more than one secondary industry of each type, because then you would add something that redundant. So I always transported everything to a single industry, made it more complex in these hubs, and kind of this game script kind of accelerates on that. That it gives you a goal, take this town and make it a huge production for random cargo.
I like it. How do you make game scripts? Does anybody know? Timberwolf, you made a game script. What is game script?
I'm not sure I know. Just like I think there's it's basically a process of reverse engineering what people have already done, and also there's some squirrel documentation somewhere, but
it's really well documented. Like everything's incredibly documented. It's brilliant. It's really easy to understand like all of the docs. But how do you make a game script? I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I think as Frosch was saying, I think it starts with an itch that you want to scratch, and then you just kind of beat your head against code until you go, oh, that itch is scratched. And then what you find is that other people who start using that script and they have related itches they need to scratch. So, for example, like later versions of Villages got all of these weird and wonderful economy settings and there's some really there's just some fantastically punishing money sinks in there. I think corporation tax and dividends just sit in there. And those just all come from people that I've played games with going, oh, we need something to stop people just racing ahead when they've got loads of money. And dividends in particular was built just to punish. Everybody in multiplayer has this one player, right, who they build 2 airports at the opposite side of the map. They have almost 0 running costs, and yet they have huge profits. And Villages dividends just punishes you massively because it goes, you're just building up a cash pile that's hugely bigger than your running costs. But all those are ideas that came from people who gave them to me and said, oh, hey, could it do this? Could it do this? Could it do this? And you start finding yourself going, wow, maybe this would, what's the game balance? Would this work? And then you find yourself sort of late at night going, yes, Squirrel docs, OpenTTD docs, let's implement this and make it work.
Yeah,
Maybe
the
you
most
should do a
important part is
tutorial.
never do the stuff exactly as people request them. Kind of just do the closer approximation so they think that is something, but you actually did something way simpler.
Oh yes, this is a thing that I learned so much doing Timberwolf's UK road vehicles, which was whenever I'd add something, the immediate thing that I would get as a request would be, can we have a parameter to turn it on or off? Can we have a parameter for this? Can we have a parameter for this? And I think people who were developing OpenTTD back in sort of 06 through to maybe 11 will know this pain very much, which is eventually you get to a point where you have so many parameters that you do the slightest, most innocuous thing. And for me, it was something like I added a van that was slightly larger than the existing vans, and I broke mail cargo handling for the entire set just with this innocuous thing, because I just had such a nest of parameters sitting in this thing. And when I did trains, I was like, there's going to be 5 parameters and that's it. And what fascinated me with that was I thought, well, everybody's going to hate that. But the feedback that I got once people got over the whole 2x thing, the feedback that I got from that was, well, now that I've played with this for a while, actually, that makes sense. I really enjoy it. And I no longer need a parameter to turn it off. I'm quite happy with this. So this as advice, and as Frosch is saying, like, if you're going to make something, do make sure like you keep track of, this is my vision, this is what I want to create. And some feedback you look at it and you think, oh, that actually makes sense. I think like the people who early on when I made roads said your roads are basically enormous humps like that when you actually look at them. And I was like, yeah, you're kind of right. This is going to involve people sort of being on buses at angles like this. But yeah, I think that's a big thing that I learned is you've got to keep your vision for, this is what I want to do. This is what I'd like this set to be.
Goes it for our parameters.
This is probably one place where I think we get a lot of disagreements. Not necessarily between all of us, but in the community, there's sort of these competing visions of OpenTTD as like, is a NewGRF like Timberwolf's vision, go play the game his way because he has done this research into what he wants and built this train set to his exact and this game script exactly the way he wants it? Or is OpenTTD a sandbox that I, the user, can change whatever I want to make me the designer of how my game works? And those are the things where I think the times where we see people asking for either parameters in NewGRF or for settings in the base game, these are these two visions colliding.
So Andy, how is your opinion about GRFs from other people? How many GRF do you check and how often do you disable first for them?
Was that a question to me? How often do I disable first? Not that often. I got a list. Now you're putting me on the spot. How many do I do? I think I've got it open.
Yes. So is it like 10? Is it 100? Is it 1,000?
Oh, it'll be like about 20. There's about 20. And the big news is Ruct is no longer disabled. Well, FURS no longer disables with Ruct, because the big news of yesterday is FURS 4.0 release and a Ruct release. And I think that's things we can really get excited about.
Yay.
I reckon, let's have a look. Incompatible graphs. I'm looking. There's, oh my God, it's 55 different graphs where FURS has to disable. and I have to track and
Maybe
test
so
those.
everyone should have put a guess first, because I wouldn't have expected 55.
All have
And
to be
it's just
tested.
Be cheating by guessing because I stole Andy's list for my industry set. Why do it twice? I mean,
Why do it
because
twice?
every industry set that defines new cargoes breaks every other industry
Every
set.
other industry set.
Cargoes are not compatible. Yeah.
Yeah, and this was just this is mostly just one feature, isn't it, that people use for creating new graphs, and it's the liveries thing.
It's the industry sets are incompatible with industries, and then the liveries thing first breaks train sets all the time. So I kept trying rucks. I was like, what's all the hype for rucks? It's got 3 rail cars in it, and it was because Furs breaks rucks, and we fixed that. We talked, we sorted it out. Furs no longer breaks rucks. But yeah, it's the liveries thing. So what's on the screen, Frosh? We're looking at Furs. Why are we looking at Furs? I've seen it before.
Well, it's your turn to tell what you are doing.
Oh God, what am I doing?
Assume that no
So
one knows what Fizz is.
what have I made? I made Hex. And I really enjoyed making Hex. It was the one I had the most fun with. I haven't
also
touched it for
my
years.
favorite.
It's kind of done. But I released it probably about 2007. And it was a kind of period in the game. It was very, like, everyone was TT forums. And most of the sets were kind of increasingly realistic train sets, which is fine. And a few industry sets. And I turned up and I was like, how big can you make a dump truck? And can you put in some bulldozers? And then Eddie turned up and said, make some trams. And we made these huge freight trams. And it kind of changed what kind of people thought you could do with those kind of transport types. It was, instead of faster, it was slower, and bigger. And it was kind of fun. I like drawing Hex. And then I did a load of stuff for Industrial Stations Renewal, kind of classic graph ISR. And then I drew a few things for Pika's. Pika made UKRS2 and everyone loved it. And then he just got overwhelmed to kind of a depressing point with people contributing extra sprites. Everyone was like, I want to put a sprite in UKRS2. And the set just started to make no sense. And I think Pika got fed up with that. But I put some stuff into that. And then I can't remember the exact order, but I made Furs with, I think about 5 other people helped me make Furs initially. And then we did chips probably to give you some stations to go with Furs. And then Dan Mac persuaded me to do like Roadhog maybe, or Iron Horse, I don't know. And there's a boat graph. I don't want to talk about the boat graphs. There's 3 boat graphs. None of them are finished. I don't like any of the boat. Well, I like Unsinkable Sand, but it's only got 5 boats in it. And then I did
4 graph. At least 4.
4 boat graphs. I don't know. And then I did
Twitch, Fish 2, and Sam.
yeah.
Is it Sam?
Yeah, those are the ones. And then I did a game script with Albert. When I say I did a game script, Albert did a game script, and I play tested it, and I got a contributor credit for that. I did about 2 commits, one of which broke save game handling it just broke save game handling. So I don't touch game scripts anymore. It's very dangerous, game script.
That's
If you look at it
right?
wrong, it goes wrong. That was Busy Bee. Yeah, Busy Bee was fun. We were kind of the antidote to city builders. There's nothing wrong with city builders, but 99% of game scripts are city builders, and it's like, how big do you want to make city?
Builders. There's nothing
Well,
worse than city builders.
I'm diplomatic, but yeah, city builders are awful. It just
So the problem is passenger transport. Yeah, when you like transport coal or steel, yeah, you get them from the source industry and put them to the destination industry, then something happens. When you transport passengers, where you transport them from A to B, and then what? Then you transport them back. So I really had that. I think that's really pointless gameplay. So I never play with passengers.
We should do like a kind of COVID lockdown game script where nobody moves passengers at all. It'd be great. That would be fantastic. That's a game script I could get behind. So yeah, I did a bit of Busy Bee, and I don't know what else I've done. I made Train Whack. Train Whack is probably my favorite achievement. I don't think, have you got it on the screen? No, you haven't. You should play Train Whack.
Yeah, I can show a round.
Let's see if we get a high score. Tension's killing me.
We just need to find our stream chef to switch the screen. Yeah, so this is Iron Horse. And at the top, there's a button to play Dwayne Whack. Or Dwayne Whack, how do you pronounce it?
Train whack.
Dwayne Whack. Okay.
Train whack.
So,
What
and
did
then
you
you
score?
get 10 random trains and you get a score.
This is actually one of my favorite games I've made. I made, as well as like TTD mods, I made about 50, 60 commercial Flash games, some of which got millions of plays, but this is probably my favorite game. You can cheat.
Kind
quite
of on the
easily.
level of a mobile game. Yeah? Everyone plays it 100 times and no one knows why.
So good.
Just
I think we should make this
on boring mode. Because boring mode is really boring.
we should make a graph version of this. We should build a JavaScript graph parser so you can just load any graph into it. I think it'd be great. Forget transporter game. We'll just play this. Anyway, we digress. What else was in our running order? Let's have a look. We had, does Furs 4 Steeltown need escape depots? This was Tyler.
Oh,
So we had a disagreement, Tyler. We disagreed. We disagreed about escape depots.
That counter needs to go up.
Yeah. Escape depots, I think they're pretty much essential, to be honest. I don't see how you could ever play without them.
Yeah, so for anyone on the stream who's not aware of escape depots, it's basically having a depot before a loading station, so that if you have 4 coal trains arrive at your coal mine, and there's only space for one at the platform, all 4 go into the coal mine. One comes out and loads up, and the other 3 are waiting in the depot because unlimited trains can fit inside a depot. And that keeps them from lining up on your main line, blocking other trains. Yeah, and we were talking about, do you need them in Furs 4 Steeltown? And Andy said he did, and I kind of took that as a challenge. So I, if you can switch the screen, I have just this week, actually just this morning, completed a Furs 4 Steeltown map where I have completed every industry and every town without using a single. All 4 go into the coal mine, and it gets a little comes out crazy. What I've done instead is build holding yards, and that keeps them from before the station. So the trains will line up in these yards instead of in a depot. So they obviously don't have infinite space. You kind of need to plan ahead. And Andy said you did, and I kind of took that as a challenge. I think this. So I kind of shows off. You can switch to see the interesting parts of Furs 4 is I have just you can have so many more cargoes just this morning per industry. Furs 4 was it still 3 in 2 out before, Andy?
It was 3 in 2 out, and the spec is now 16 in 16 out. Furs limits at 8 in 8 out because it just gets a bit mad. But right. It's enough. It's enough to mess with you.
Yeah, but like the bulk terminal. Which the stream's like 10 seconds behind me, but we'll get there in a minute. The bulk terminal takes 3 cargoes in and 5 cargoes out. So there's an absolutely enormous yard to hold, those 5 different train lines, all routed through waypoints to wait their turn essentially for loading.
But yeah, I did make it to mess with you. I made Furs 4 Steeltown to really mess you up on this stuff. And some of the industries try and locate really close. So you've got no space. So we get into kind of game design things here. So mostly it's a sandbox game, right? You don't want to overthink it. You start thinking about balancing too much, you just go a bit mad. Like it's kind of rage quit time. If you try and balance OpenTTD. In fact, the best YouTube videos are the videos that prove how balanced it is. It's a great game for balancing. But I figured out, I just had this like little thing a few years ago, like tiles. Like money's so easy. And like there's loads of money. Money isn't the limit. And there's no gems. And there's no gold. So we're pretty limited on other resources. And there's no kind of like extra stuff to kind of get badges or achievements. But what we're short of is tiles. We're really short of tiles. So I just made Furs 4 Steeltown to can't swear on the stream, can I? Just to mess you up. Truebrain says no swearing. Yeah. So it just makes it really hard by co-locating loads of industries. but Tyler has proved me wrong. He's broken my game. He's messed with me. I disagree with this.
We've already
Disagree.
started disagreement from this one.
So do you
Sometimes.
take the challenge to mess more with Tyler?
Yeah, find me a new challenge. I mean, you're absolutely right, though. I mean, like in the very early game when you're building, your first train, maybe you have to worry about money, especially if you're doing like what Timberwolf did in his video series, where do you have the running costs turned up, or just your trains are expensive?
They're just rubbish, I think, is the thing. So so those early games, like this is a thing with early sets. Like it's if you go back to Chris Sawyer's design, it's kind of designed for a range of vehicles which at the low end go 30 miles per hour, at the high end go, well, before he added maglevs, sort of 110, 120 miles per hour. And that's a very sort of sweet spot the game design works. When you start adding vehicles that have got 10 horsepower and go 12 miles per hour, things start to break down because you start to get to a point where you can never make enough profit to make up your static costs, especially when you have the infrastructure maintenance and things like that. And I just had, when I did 1815 start, which is now up to a frankly ridiculous number of episodes, when I did that, is like I created it first, and I was like, oh, I've broken that. I could just transport passengers. It's fine. This will make money. So then I added improved town layouts, which of course quarters the number of passengers, thanks to it. So passengers breaks. And I just got down and to this point where, because you only had vehicles, or in fact you only didn't have any vehicles, you had sort of horses with wagons on them that go about 12 miles per hour. And you're just sitting there going, my horse can only haul about 2 wagons, but that doesn't give me enough profit, so I need to add multiple horses and string things out. And you just get to the point where you're sitting there and you go, the only thing that I can do is the fact that it's wharfs or it's ports or something like that produce engineering supplies in FERS. And engineering supplies is this sort of tier 3 cargo, which is supposed to be like, you've connected everything. So now you've got engineering supplies. You're going to get paid really well for this. And the default settings, like at a port, it doesn't give you that much. If you're playing with normal vehicles, it doesn't give you enough to fill up a train. So you're just building a running course. But when you have horses, and they can only carry about 12 tons or something, you're like, oh, hey, this works for me. I could just connect the ports. And I could just ruin this game balance in this way that basically I found a corner case in FERS that works if you've got really rubbish vehicles.
I've just reset all the cargo payment rates, so I might have ruined your corner case.
Oh, we should have to.
They were kind of high.
Yes,
but it might work. Let's talk about. I'll give Frosch a minute. I asked you what are the top 10 3 worst things in the NewGRF spec. So let's discuss the NewGRF spec. It's a fascinating world, the NewGRF spec. I think Frosch probably has the best insights, but Tyler, when you start, have you run into the joys of making NewGRF yet? You have an idea. The idea might be good, it might be bad, but whether you can do the idea is very much dependent on whether the spec is going to smack you in the face. Have you run into this?
Yeah, there are some things that you wish were possible, but just aren't. One of the things that I ran into in improved town layouts is there's no way to have a top-down view of what houses are in your town. Each house needs to have its own logic for, what's next to me? How many other houses like me are there? You can give houses classes, like an arbitrary grouping, which I found really, really helpful. But they kind of, it's a very grassroots approach, which kind of works. It's kind of organic. But would there be maybe more powerful ways to do it with a top-down approach? Sure. And then the flip side of that is there's all sorts of things where why do we have to define how much air resistance our train has? Like how many pixels?
Because in 1998 it was very, very important to someone somewhere that was accurately modeled, even though the game physics probably only applies it in tunnels and probably does it wrong.
Yeah, but
I just want to know if that was
2004 or something. So that is like kind of really new, and it is really important.
Very
that
important.
Was it a TTD feature or just OpenTTD?
No, this is a new feature in TTD patch, and it is kind of the same as with the settings. So when there's some kind of feature, there are some people who really like it, really important, and others say, what does it really matter?
I was on the really important side. I spent so much time. When did realistic train acceleration get added to OpenTTD? It's 2007 or 2008, I think.
Back
The
then,
same
yeah.
thing that added this air resistance thing.
Yeah, but until that got added in, I remember just every time there was an update to OpenTTD, all I would do is I would pull the source code, I would patch it with whatever realistic physics patch was in existence at that time. Probably messed with it a bit myself as well. I had one version which was incredibly evil, which was if your train didn't have enough tractive effort to make it up the hill, because you know if it stops, it goes down to sort of 1 mile per hour. Mine had it as it actually stops, and it just gives you.
Would it go backwards? Can we make them go backwards?
Oh,
Next stream, backwards trains.
now I was thinking surely that's not possible, but you see in is it JGR that's just added this realistic braking?
So I had a patch to make trains go backwards.
This is amazing news. Where's the patch? We should dig that up. We should dig that up.
I think I can get it on stream.
Now we'll watch.
Yeah, so this is the old screenshot. So if you can take a look at the smoke of the trains, then you can figure out the driving direction.
Is this a push-pull? Is this a push-pull patch? Or is this a drive backwards?
So yeah, so it was kind of the idea to make this push-pull easier. And so I made a patch for driving backwards. And that was kind of a prototype to find people who want to engage in it. But the result was actually that kind of no one was happy because everyone jumped on the train and wanted to turn it to something else. And I just wanted to start to make trains go backwards and then start from there, but no one else wanted that. So it's kind of a failed project of mine.
Sad story. You could always revisit it. Maybe we should dig it up. Revival.
I would love to see that. One of the things I've been doing in Danish trains is making it look like trains reverse or look like trains don't reverse directions. Look like they back up. Oh, they're all multiple units, so they've got a driving cab on both ends. But I'm having to do all sorts of sprite swapping if the train reverses directions. It'd be so much easier if it just actually just backed up.
So do you want to continue with the spec lols?
Let's do the spelos. So Timberwolf, what are your top 10 3 worst things?
So I'm in this relatively weird space with NewGRF where I've kind of made my peace with the fact that there's a limited spec. So I get the occasional gripe. I think there's one which has come up again recently because I think someone else is trying to do the thing which I've done, which is when things are checked and in vehicle properties. For those people who don't write NewGRFs, right? You have a bunch of properties. You have things like this is the speed, this is the power, this is whatever. And you can put switches in. You can say, I don't want this to just be a fixed value. I want some code to run. But that code only gets run at certain times under certain triggers. And one of those is the vehicle's maximum speed. And that changes when the vehicle reverses and when the track type changes. And one of the things that I really wanted for Timberwolf's trains was to have this kind of idea of tear speed, which is that you have, when the vehicle's full, it has a 50 mile an hour top speed, and when it's empty, it has a 70 mile an hour top speed. And I implemented something. I was like, oh yes, this works really nicely. This is great. This is all working fine. And then I built a ro-ro station. I built a station where the train doesn't reverse direction when it changes. And then I realized that, oh yes, speed only changes when the train actually does a full reverse. It doesn't change. So I don't really have a top 3 in that way, because I think I started programming computers early enough that I always like the limitations and the building the sort of horror in working around them and taking. A lot of the stuff which Trains does in those sort of gradual turn sprites is actually down to credit to Eddie, who figured it out for CETS, and then I just basically took most of that and tweaked it in little ways. But I love that kind of, this shouldn't theoretically be possible, but it is. So, those limitations are good.
I do think I like the limitations. I think the ones that frustrate me are they're often older features or features. It's a real thing because we always want to push this. We always want to push for more in the spec. But when you push for more in the spec and you get something that's not quite right, you get these kind of half-assed features that seem like they do a thing and then they don't do a thing, or sometimes they're just broken. Like curve speed was in the spec for years, so you can set a train to not be affected by tight curves, but it just didn't work. And I said this is not working, and nobody was like, fine, of course it works in the spec. And it was like 2 years later, I proved it didn't work, and it's fixed now. But some of the others, like cargo aging is just like a car crash. It's just a nothing feature. It's meaningless. In fact, everything about cargo payment is just a car crash. Like, we want to have 4K maps and day length in patch packs, and then we want to have like 64 by 64 maps, and like cargo aging is just broken, just not a thing. So it's kind of weird, annoying bits. And then there's bits that like we can't do it because OpenTTD won't be able to do it. It's like a performance issue, or it's a network safety issue, like not desyncing in multiplayer, and those things are fine. And there's other things we can't do it because we can't work out how to do it well. And then there's other things we can't do it because I don't know. It's just kind of inertia. And then other things just turn up. Like we had 3 and 2 out on industries, and then suddenly we have 16 in industries. And like sometimes changes just appear. The NewGRF spec is a very odd place. It's a very puzzling game. It is like it's playing a game. You kind of have to sort of trick people sometimes or persuade them to make a change. You can have an idea for kind of gameplay or something, and you try it and you implement it and you think it's working, and then like your case, Timberwolf, you find that it doesn't quite work how you think, and you've spent 2 days building it, balancing it, play testing it, and then you tell the forums and Reddit and Discord, and then you find out it doesn't work, and you pretty much got to delete it. It's kind of, the spec will smack you in the face quite a lot. It's a good game.
Well, this is a thing that I think certainly the core developers, I think all of us have realized now that perhaps that Josef didn't realize back in 1998 when he was doing TTD patch, and we didn't realize in 2005, 2006, which is when you add something, especially to the NewGRF spec, you have to live with that forever, because someone's going to build a graph that actually uses that.
Yeah. Or we could just break it, but we've never done that. Historically, we haven't done it, except to me. It happens to me. My graph's been broken multiple times. It's like, yeah, that's not network safe. We're just breaking your graph. Oh yeah, we're just going to change the cargo colors. Just break furs. It's fine. But we don't break graphs for people who'll turn up and make a massive forum drama once and be really awkward about it. But fine to break others. Anyway, we should break more. It would be great. Break things. Progress. Frosch knows so much more about NewGRF spec. In fact,
so this factory had kind of these Friday effect blocks, and they also always wrote about things that they kind of want to change but can't change them. And it is like a far newer game, which was very active developed, and still they did not have the capacity to like change their scale. So the most obvious problem in Factorio is like the different scale in X and in Y direction, and they just can't fix it. So there's no baked into everything, and everyone has to distort their sprites, and it's kind of the same as in OpenTTD.
I've just seen in the chat someone's mentioned day length, and day length is a really good example of this. How do you actually specify this to make it work? And so we've discussed it, and I think I mentioned it in my videos, because the thing with day length is you have all of these rates which are kind of in stock OpenTTD. They are maybe they're dependent on a month, or they're dependent on game tick, or they're dependent on days, or they're dependent on years. And when you change that sort of 74 ticks to a day, what impact does that have? Like, what do you do to cargo production? What do you do to sort of running costs? What do you do to whatever else? So I think one of the reasons that it's just not made it in, this is where I think patch packs have kind of an advantage, which is in a patch pack you can do that. I have an opinionated view of this is how I want the world to be, and I'm just going to go for it. And nobody complains because you just say if that's not for you, then you can create your own patch pack which has a different version of it. But for vanilla, it's really hard because you can guarantee whatever version of day length you pick, whether it's sort of just a slower game throughout, whether it's a game where it's much easier to make profit, whether it's a whatever, you can guarantee that you please one person and 9 people will be. But that's not the day length I wanted.
I can pretty much guarantee it gets me first bug report before I'm so anti. I'm so anti. Any day length patch gets me a bug report. Happy days. Great. Oh, you're using day length. Thanks. I've just spent like an hour trying to figure out what I broke again. But no, you're using day length. Frosch, you know so much about the NewGRF spec. Top 10 3 worst things. Your list must be pretty good.
Yeah, so I have again some stuff to show. So this is, I will start with like the basics. So we make some small tour through NewGRF. And this is kind of TTD viewer, which also is a tool. And it shows like sprites for TTD, but it also shows all the animation and things that TTD does. And here in the top right, you have kind of this palette of TTD. So it uses a palette to draw things, and some of these colors are animated. You can see that the water cycle is kind of here in the middle, and then the fire cycles and all kind of stuff. So, and yeah, and you can see that it is kind of organized and everything. So that it is sorted by different hues. And then in the bottom, there's also a number of 12 colors which are unused. Yeah, so there's actually no one ever wanted to use this palette to add more colors or anything. So, and then, so this is still original Transport Tycoon from like 95. And then stuff started to change. So, and the first thing that actually happened is that it was like ported to Windows. And with Windows, you kind of start to have a problem. So in Windows, it's kind of the top. In Windows, you have this 265 color modes, and actually not possible to use these colors in the first row. And then they had to move them away. But instead of using like these 12 unused colors, they like scattered them all over the place. You can, maybe I need to zoom in a bit. And yeah, then you can see that like on the left is this DOS palette, and on the right is this Windows 9X palette. And kind of these colors are kind of different, and they just essentially shuffled the colors around and didn't kind of use the obvious solution of using the unused colors. So, and then actually the same thing happened later again. So that's what is funny about it. So if we go back to this vehicle, so you can now pick company colors. So in company color is kind of done that some entities of the palette are replaced. So you can now take this blue and kind of replace it with green or with purple or some other colors. And this actually means that kind of some colors from the palette are kind of redefined, remapped to a different color. So, and in original Transport Tycoon, it essentially just takes these blue colors at the top. These blue colors here, it takes and remaps them to a different color. So, and then we gained a new feature, and that was like two company colors. And then you have again the option, so which colors do you pick to use two company colors? So you need 8 free slots to pick 3 colors. So which colors would you use? Would you use the 12 unused? No,
No,
of course
they're
you
really
won't.
important. Don't
Yeah.
keep those. We need all those pinks.
Yeah, so instead you just say, well, no vehicle is really green, yeah, so we just take the green colors and then use them. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's kind of
No, don't use the pinks up. They're important.
but the real reason is actually because no one knew what these pink colors were used for. So no one knew, are they really unused? Is there maybe some magic code that does something? So it was kind of really confusing. Like why is the pink? Why isn't it white or black? Why pink? Does pink something magic? It was actually called magic pink. And that's probably why no one wanted to touch them. And instead of like using the unused colors, they just, well, we just use the colors which we know what they are, and we probably don't use them. Yeah, so
I
that was
use the pinks. I use the pinks. I use them to mask things. I create masks with pinks in image processing. But it turns out the pinks aren't all the same. But they look the same. So if you pick the wrong pink in Photoshop, your image processing doesn't work right. So, magic pinks, really good. Free company colors, anyone?
So not all image editing softwares I really like this animated palette that you have here. I discovered I was working in Magic Voxel and then making sprites using GoRender, and I discovered if you draw a train in an animated color, you can't tell until you put it into the game. Let me see if I can stream that.
Do you know that there's two browns that are almost the same RGB value as well? They're really hard to find.
Yeah, and two yellows that look identical.
Yeah. But one's animated and one isn't.
Yeah, my stream might not work, but yeah, I drew a train in. Turns out it's the Cola Wells in Toyland have their own animated color range. So I have a train that pulses through different shades of brown. It's horrifying, but funny.
I disagree that it's horrifying. I just think it's funny.
Trying to bump up that counter.
Yeah, no, it's pretty low actually. The counter's only on 6, so that needs to go up. There we go.
Yeah, so the animated colors are really hard to use. So even in OpenGFX, so there's like this win screen in 2050, when you have won the game, and actually there are two different win screens, whether you get the full score of 1,000 points or whether you get some other score. And apparently no one ever gets to a score of 1,000 because in OpenGFX, this win screen for 1,000 points is actually completely broken. Yeah, it is like animated all over the place. And we never got the bug report in 12 years. I think Andy randomly discovered it last year when debugging OpenGFX, but kind of no one ever wins the game.
Oh, maybe it was a feature. Maybe they liked it.
There's a score that there's a score that everyone gets, which is basically perfect in every category apart from the minimum vehicle profit.
You can game that score.
You can
If you
gain
ever
that
wanna win
score
the
by
high
not providing good service to your towns. I mean, that'll be one of our disagreements where I think passengers actually are a lot of fun to transport. I disagree there.
Clearly wrong. They grow your towns. The towns spam the maps. You can't build any coal lines. Like the game is about moving steel around on steel. So why do you want to grow your towns? They just get in the way. I turn town growth off and bulldoze them. Minimal towns. I did try messing with that idea though, because I made scrap metal. Now depends on your town population in Furs. I don't know if this mechanic sucks or not. I think it sucks.
I know it.
Right.
So if I didn't know better, I would have sworn you did it on purpose. In the game that I showed earlier on the stream, the one scrapyard generated in the smallest town on the map. So I had to grow it.
Yeah.
I said that's a good feature, and then I realized it's not possible because I've made industries. They don't have a way of knowing what's the smallest town. on the map.
They don't. Well, no, I could probably do that, but make towns great again. That was my idea. I don't know if it works though. Towns are annoying, right? Just delete them. That would be it. That would be a revolution. No towns. Get rid of them. Good game. So what's next, Frosch? What's the other top 10 worst 3 features?
Yeah, so this part is kind of the perspective in TDD. So I have here 2 trains, which are kind of the same length. Yeah, and also in the depot, they say they are both 4 tile long, but if you look closely, they have very different lengths. Yeah. So you can compare the top train with the bottom train in the depot. They have very different lengths, but they have bound lengths of 4 tiles, and on the map they have also the same length. So and this is kind of one of these perspective things that, like TDD does, is based on this diagonal tracks, and in horizontal and vertical tracks, everything is kind of stretched. So if we now take this train and put it next to the one on the map, then we can actually see that they also have different lengths. Yeah.
That makes so much sense.
Is this the that 32 pixels depot view thing in NML that I set because I saw somebody else doing it and fixed things?
Yeah, exactly. So in these tiles on the map, they are like kind of 64 times 32 pixels. And when you kind of draw a train in one direction, it is kind of 32 pixels. And if you now have put it horizontal, then it would theoretically, if you take the normal square root of 2 of that, then you would have 22.6 pixels. But actually what TTD does, it actually does draw them at a distance of 32. So kind of the length is, every train is kind of 50% longer in this horizontal direction than in the X or Y direction, in the diagonal direction. And the depot is actually different. So here it is 29 pixels. So there's neither 32 nor 26. Yeah, so
Makes complete sense. I mean, how else could it be? This is the natural way.
Yeah, so you
It
have
doesn't
3
cause bug
different
report.
perspectives to draw your trains to different lengths. And yeah, it is your job as NewGRF out there to figure out to make it look good everywhere.
It's almost as good as trams changing their position depending on the drive side, which really messes up your alignment. It's great. They don't line. The left and right drive sides on trams are not the same. And if you switch halfway through making your set, it's pretty wrong. Anyway, no. What else have we got? Top 10 3 thinglands that are worst. There are more.
Yeah, so the next one thing I want to talk about is this Livery Gui. So
These are good. These are brilliant. I love this.
So here in the settings, yeah, like you can set your company color, but actually there's more options. For example, for a train, you can define different color for steam, diesel, electric, and monorail and maglev. So kind of the original vehicle types, but there's also for DMUs and EMUs, you can set different colors. And then for passenger coach, you can set all the different colors. And then you have freight wagons. And as you probably remember, I said earlier, I'm a freight fan. And so I'm really upset that there are like 10 settings for different passenger wagons, but one for freight colors. So
and no caboose. There's no caboose. It's shocking.
Yeah. So and also this also affects the spec, because the spec has a specific flag to define for each train whether it is a multiple unit. And this flag is actually only used for this dialog. So this dialog is also, it is not mentioned by OpenTTD. It is kind of defined by the NewGRF spec. And if you want to change this dialog, then you have to change the spec. Or when you remove this dialog, then probably someone will complain.
Do you have a poll?
Yeah, exactly. So I will post it in Twitch chat shortly.
I just checked actually in the game. So cabooses are passenger coaches. It obviously makes sense. They've got a garden. So what else would they be? So you change your passenger coach to blue in your cabooses. Go blue. Fine. Makes complete sense.
It's also they suffer from the same problem that you were having with the cargo subtypes for livery changes, which is that if you don't make your break van passengers and you make it some other cargo, you then end up with things like you change your industry NewGRF, and then suddenly your set has no break vans because the cargo that they are defined for no longer exists. And I did this. I think I originally defined Timberwolf trains break vans as good, thinking, oh yeah, goods, that's in everything.
Yeah.
Not
They're
if
going to
they're still
disappear.
down.
Nope.
Yeah, they're still down.
Surprise. Yeah, there's a bit of surprise. There's definitely like surprise. It keeps you on your toes.
But if you loaded the NewGRFs in the opposite order, wouldn't you then you'd have your cabooses, but Steeltown would be missing a cargo, right?
It depends what you've done, whether you start defining cargoes in train sets, which some people do and would be better off recommended not to.
Right, okay, right. So if you have a cargo
Because
table
then you
versus
have
an
a
actual
broken
cargo.
Yeah, then you have train sets breaking industry graphs. So that's really, it's not the optimum outcome for anybody involved.
Right.
Livery Gui, let's do the poll. How do I do a poll? I'm so excited now. Straw poll. What are the results? Never saw that GUI. I've seen that GUI. I use less than 3 of the choices. Yes, let's vote for that. Has everybody voted? Come on, Diz. Come on, Twitch. Get your votes in. Oh my word, that GUI's dead. If anybody really likes that GUI, they need to click now. Because Frosch is going to delete it tomorrow. You can see what's happening there. I mean, we're looking at 78.
It's democracy, right?
78 and a half.
When the majority says it is useless, we can remove it, right?
Yeah, 78.5% of people. That's a majority. I mean, we left the EU on the basis of 51%. That was fine. 78%. Off it goes. Just remove it. It's done. Crowd has spoken. I mean, that's quite a lot of votes. That's 29 people. Practically the entire player base. See if any more have voted. So, Frosch, the point of your poll was, obviously, other than it's very amusing.
Yeah, I kind of hate this GUI. So maybe it was obvious.
Yeah. I particularly hate the DMU setting because DMU and EMU, you can do it, but you can't. It doesn't work for the coaches. It only works for the engines. So if you make like, I don't know, like a Pendolino or something, you can set the engine to be EMU, but none of the coaches for it will be EMU, even if they're powered. Even if they're powered. And even if they're a kind of 2-head engine.
Dual-headed engines are just weird, but
you have to. They're adventures in variable 61. 2-headed engines. You want to do anything with 2-headed engines? That's more than just make one. You're going to learn variable 61 pretty quickly.
Yeah, I helped make Rocket Gronk, and that was pretty weird.
That was
like
so good.
For a while, there were like
So
rockets
good.
on both ends. Yeah.
I love Rocket Gronk. It's so good. That was fantastic. That was content of the year for me. It was really good. Yeah, the 2-headed engines, there are strangenesses. And random triggers with them are particularly exciting. In fact, random triggers particularly exciting with everything. Have you got any more top 10 worst 3 things, Frosch, or did you just stick to the 3?
Well, the next one I have is kind of how to make NewGRF outdoors fight against each other. So this one is about vehicle fetting. And if you have like a train, you can define which cargoes it shall transport. But actually this is done in a way that you can name explicit cargoes which it shall transport, or you can use these cargo classes. So you can say your vehicle can transport all bulk cargoes or all liquid cargoes or something like that. And that is kind of meant so that your vehicle GRF can also support cargoes in the futures. in the future, which later in industry NewGRF will define. However, the way it was originally done, so this was luckily changed, but originally it was done in a way that you defined, there was this magic formula. So this was clearly invented by a programmer. So the vehicle is refittable to like the cargo classes and to some other not cargo classes, and then exclusive or a set of of cargo classes. And that kind of means you could say your vehicle is only refittable to bulk cargos and to liquid cargos, but not to wood and not to steel or something like that. So well, that is all fine. However, it kind of this property in the back, it kind of always inverted the decision. So you could say wood is the exception or steel is the exception, and then it would evaluate the other properties in front, and if it ended up refittable to them, then it would negate them, make it not refittable, and the opposite. And this kind of created some fun interaction between vehicle authors and industry authors, because when the industry author changed the cargo classes, then suddenly the vehicle GF would do the opposite of what they intended. So now one GF had the power to kind of inverse what some other GF did. And if you OpenTTD developer, that is kind of the best thing you do. Yeah, you just implement something, and then you have vehicle GF authors and industry GF authors fight against each other because one author is breaking the chat of the other one. So there was a lot of forum drama, and yeah, well, later was a change that you can explicitly list the cargo that it shall transport, and you don't have this inverting property. So this inverting property was really a lot of fun. Yeah, maybe any you still remember those times.
I remember those times. And I remember somebody, might have been Peter, turned up and looked at it and went, "This is mad," and just put a property in that made more sense. And then we use that instead. But then there's an extra node on the graph that you have to draw. Sometimes a new property is what you need, but then it makes things even worse. It's pretty good. Have you got any others?
Yeah, so exactly. So you only brought it up. So this vehicle with fitting and capacity stuff, that is really easy now. And there's actually an overview in the specification. And that is kind of, it describes how it behaves. But actually, no, this is not how it behaves. So this is only until OpenTTD 1.2, and OpenTTD 1.2 is slightly different. So it is this graph. So this is all very easy. But actually, you have also an attribute to choose that if you don't like this behavior, then you can choose to use this one. So
it's important to have freedom of choice.
Exactly. So GF is really easy to do. You just have to follow the arrows, and then everything is clear. I think everyone should understand this. What?
Let's clap. Yeah. I understand all of that. I refer to it often. And Tyler and Timberwolf understand all of that too, don't you? As now elite, newly joined elite NewGRF developers. I'm sure you look at this all the time.
I feel nervous about anybody just describing it as like someone on IRC the other day was claiming that it's like you're the expert in this. I was like, no, I'm not. It's just my graph just happens to be the first thing that I slapped together that works, and I was like, oh, that's fine, that will do. The other one that's a bit like this, actually, that I will add, I've now retrospectively added a second one, is the road type compatibility and definition lists, which it is possible for, yeah, and you may just want to like, what's the setting in Discord? You may just want to deafen yourself for this whole
I might want to go for a walk.
But yeah, there's a thing
I'll come back.
That road graphs can define road types, and vehicle new graphs can also define road types. You have issues where you can also, in a road type, you can define a road type that you're not going to use. This was how I ended up with a wonderful bug report on road vehicles, which was, I can only build horse wagons, and I can only build them in a waterway depot, and they only travel on water. And it was because the person who was playing this had a particular combination of road new graphs loaded in a certain order, that one of them defined dirt, but didn't actually create it as a road type. and one identified road and didn't create it as a road type. So you could not create either of those vehicles. You can't create dirt or road, which is basically the two types of thing that are in Timberwolf's road vehicles. They then had Waterways, which I think Waterways says that dirt is compatible with waterway, so that when you build canal boats, they can go over the sort of dirt and ford crossings, whatever. So they ended up with this wonderful situation where I've loaded Timberwolf's road vehicles, and the only thing I can build is horse wagons, and the only thing they go on is canals.
Oh no, we're still talking about it.
We just finished talking about it.
Oh,
Perfect
it's
timing.
so easy. It's so easy to look at all of the spec when you're trying to make something. And you look at it and you go, "Who did this madness?" And then you try and do a bit yourself, like NRT. And much regret follows. It's really quite a hard game making specs. Frosch is going to show us something more.
The great thing, well, Frosh, you said that, is of course it's who gets the bug report. It's like you with FIRS and Daylips. It's like it's basically it's where the person first notices it. That's the person who gets the bug report. And
Well, I mean, most bug reports just go to JGR now, so that's fine.
oh
Like,
yes,
whatever it is.
oh,
Whatever it is, JGR will get the bug report. Doesn't matter if it's completely unrelated. It's absolutely fine. JGR will field it. Great. What are we going to look at now?
Yeah, so I have prepared a game. So, but I first have to explain the rules. So this is
Okay.
an example source code from the Dutch train set. Someone on the stream may know that. And this is kind of how the source code for NewGRF looks like. So you have kind of here, you can define a train. In this case, it is, I need to move it slightly.
Is this NML? Is this what NML looks like?
Yeah, this is NML. So you here define the train X2000.
Oh no, this is my NML.
Yeah, exactly. I just picked that.
Okay.
So, and then you can define various things for them. And that kind of happens here at the bottom. So you have here, you can define the graphics or default graphics or different graphics in the purchase list. And then when you follow these links, yeah, you get to somewhere else. So here are then, so all this one goes to somewhere else. Then, and yeah, so and then you get to these switches and they link to the next one. And so this whole thing, the whole GRF essentially consists of things that link each other. So and you can actually show this in a different way. So we have to wait for Streamlag. So, and this one is the exact same GF which we just looked at. So this is the item, this train X2000, and it will link from here to a different switch, and so on. And for the purpose of this game, we will actually not look at this, but we will look at this view. So when zoomed out. And now we can do the reverse. So I will show you a graph, and you will tell me which GF it is. Okay? So we start with something easy. So what do you think? What is this?
Ooh.
Is it a train? Is it an industry? Who of you three coded this?
That's a road type, and I think it's Timberwolf.
I was going to say it looks like something that's either Anders or mine, but I actually can't zoom in close enough to even see what's going on. I just see this massive graph.
You can
Yeah,
guess
same.
how many callbacks are being handled, and then you can see how many results you get out. So green is probably action ones. Is green action one?
Green are the graphics, and then red at the bottom is the one single item, then the yellow is all the switches in between.
Oh, if there's that many graphics, I'm
Maybe
almost tempted to say
cargoes.
that. I'm tempted to say that could be either one of my direction switches or it could be one of my cargo stack switches.
Yeah, okay, so we will zoom in, and then we have
Keeping a score.
it is actually a train, and it is the Geronimo train. So
No way.
So
That's
it's
mine.
very obvious, right? So we can like scroll a bit to the left and right, and we actually see that kind of the bottom part is actually very small. The bottom part handles all the properties like speed and reflectability and everything. And then at some point you get to the
Parameters.
which actually
Cargo
provides
parameters.
the graphics, yeah, and the cargoes, and from that point on it gets very huge. Yeah, so if you zoom out again, so here at when we wait, so here at the
Okay,
bottom,
so far is Frosch 1, the rest of us nil.
Yeah.
yeah,
And we
Frosch is winning.
sped this up for 1.11. So, which was that originally code which was probably inherited all the way back from the way that Transport Token used to do it. Resolving a vehicle sprite was considered to be very cheap. You just have one sprite from every couple of switches. And then, of course, people like Andy and me come along, and we've got this sort of, well, in my case, you've got this sort of nightmarish chain that's trying to figure out what direction this thing pointed, which sprite should I use? Is it going to be just a transparent sprite or not? And it becomes very slow to resolve a whole map's worth of vehicles. So we changed it so that vehicles only get resolved when they're in the viewport, which is great. It's a really nice speed up. It's a big speed up if you're using Iron Horse or if you're using Timberwolf's trains. But actually making it work and actually making all of the sprite appear at once, I should show something wonderful here, because I think we agreed that we should put this on stream.
Yeah,
So
we do. We should stream
if I can take this over, let's see if that is actually doing anything. How far behind are we on stream? There's plenty of stream lag. Let me check that I've actually got OBS running. So yeah, there's some good stream lag going on here, I think. Let's see if I can actually give it. Let me build the thing. So let me at least get some way ahead. There you go. Yes, you're
catching up.
Yes, you're catching up slowly.
You're
catching up slowly.
Yeah.
So I have this indecisive train.
The best train.
The best train, indecisive train. So what does indecisive train do? Indecisive train does this. And you might think, what in the world is that for? And it's because the whole idea of only resolving a sprite when it's actually on the viewport turns out to be quite an actually difficult thing to decide, because you kind of need to resolve it to know how big it is. And so that's what this was designed to test, which was the extreme case. If I came up with what is the worst thing that a NewGRF author can do, and bear in mind I've been one of those people quite frequently, and I worked it out that it's just create something that changes its size from sort of by an order of magnitude every other frame. And this is why you don't see like sort of partial sprites in 1.11 with the new change.
What's 1.11? I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, we shouldn't say about that. Yeah, of course. Because
I don't even know. There is no Fight Club.
Of course. Have we, Truman, Frosch, should we be talking about this? Would anybody know about 1.11?
There is no 1.11.
No, 1.11. I don't think we have. I don't think we've put it anywhere that the internet would find it, have we?
I haven't seen it anywhere.
No.
Yeah, so I don't follow mainline development. I never figure out when they release it.
I have no idea. I've heard it might be coming soon, but I don't keep up. I mean, the main thing was yesterday, first 4 got released. And Rux.
Yeah, yesterday everyone was
1.11.
talking about train engines. Yeah, steam engines and some stuff like that. Mostly steam engines.
It's all steam engines. Nobody in the chat has seen 1.11 either. So I don't know. Maybe it's coming soon. I don't know. Next time True Brain's on, we'll ask True Brain. We are running out of time, actually. Time has ticked on. We said we would stop soon. I wanted to discuss the other worst things a NewGRF author could do, because I found some, but I don't think we have time. But that one was pretty good. Frosch, are there any more exciting things you'd like to show us about the spec before we
No, I
have to
can only
finish?
make you guess more weird graphs. If you want.
Oh, let's play the graph game again. You didn't pick my Lupin roll, which is a shame.
Of course not. I couldn't print that.
Graphics. Crashes graphics.
Okay, so let's take a smaller one. I actually had to zoom out a bit so you can't read it. So this one has kind of the item at the bottom, and then there's a huge tower on the right. I have no idea what this tower is. So do you have a guess whether this is a train again, or whale type, industry?
Oh,
Is green sprite or is yellow sprite?
Green is this sprite. Oh, exactly. So there's only one sprite in here.
Maybe an industry then? Maybe that's production?
I can read. I can read.
You're
I
right.
can read the switch names. It's a
You can
petrol
read
pump.
them. I can't read them.
It's a petrol pump. What's that gonna be? I reckon that's Tyler.
Yeah,
No?
so
Cheating. It's not cheating using my eyes. I've got eyes. That's Tyler.
That is not. I don't have petrol pumps.
If that's Furs, it's the broken code in Furs 4. It
So
doesn't work.
this is indeed an industry from Furs, and you can kind of, so there's the difference between this train graph and this industry graph, because the train graph had this huge switch depending on which cargo it transports, which really broad, while this industry graph is actually really small. Yeah. So you would
It's
think
all location checks.
What do you mean?
Location.
Ah, yeah, on the right, this is kind of some minimum distance thing where first is checking for nearby industries whether it really wants them or not. And I guess it just, I mean, Andy, do you know from your heart what it does?
It tries to locate away from certain industries, near certain industries, and near roads and towns, but it doesn't actually work. So that entire switch stack doesn't work. Sometimes it returns true when it should return false, and vice versa. But I shipped it anyway. Kind of fine.
Yeah.
Is that in Furs 4?
Yeah. Yeah. And in all the forks, hopefully. Have we got any more? Truebane's going to cut us off soon. I'm looking at the time. I know the producer behind the scenes is going to cut us off at 8:30.
I mean, I can continue this infinitely. So for those interested, on my GitHub, I have actually uploaded all the images for all of Furs, all of Iron Horse, and all of Danish trains. So if you want to check more graphs, but actually they get kind of boring. Yeah. So every Furs industry looks the same. Every vehicle looks the same, and so on.
Because you don't do the procedures. You should get that Lupin roll in there. That'd be so good. If you have a code generator, you can make these really fun. It raises the game.
So this one is the largest that I got. So I mean, you can't see anything, but maybe from the, so actually this graph
what's that?
This graph was actually too big for this plotter. So it actually kind of reduced the size of overall, and this is actually fully zoomed in because it just couldn't create a larger image. This you can see at the top. This currently is 32,767 pixels width, and apparently it can't create a wider one than 2 to the power of 15. So actually you can't read it even when I zoom in.
I'm going to blame Timberwolf. This is Timberwolf.
It's got to be.
It's got to be that many sprites.
Timberwolf.
This is one of those trains that has like 8 different curving sprites, and it goes uphill and downhill and breaks all the rules. It looks like a different game. Looks like Locomotion.
Timberwolf.
I think so. If I can remember how the flow actually goes, but yeah, I think so. It's fairly flat as well. So
Timberwolf.
Yeah, so it's very flat indeed, because it's essentially just a wagon which supports 44 different of cargo types. So at one point in this graph, it branches in 44 different ways for 44 different cargo types, and then yeah. So at the top, you always get kind of these groups. So there are always like 8 bubbles grouped together for one cargo, and then that repeats 40 times. And that's the graph. So pretty boring, actually.
ooh, that to me suggests it's not one of mine, because I think mine have
If
fairly
this
few.
is
Mine are done by recolors. They're not done by distinct cargo types.
Yeah. So again, this is from Iron Horse. Some
I
general.
feel like I've been victimized. I've been made an example of. This is shocking.
Yeah. So this is a low-floor intermodal car. Generation 5.
Containers.
Very obvious. Yeah.
Containers. That was a good game. True Brain, do we have to finish? I'm going to look at our producer. I can see his face. He says we've got to finish.
Yeah.
There's one thing we forgot. You told me to bring a hat.
What did we forget? Oh, we did that.
Ah,
game.
yes.
Where's the hat?
Yes.
I don't know if everyone got a
which
hat,
hat
though.
is best.
I disagree. We did.
Mine doesn't
Hats.
fit. I have to. Other way?
You've already won, Tyler.
Yeah.
This is not even my hat.
Have you
I'm
prepared?
going to point out it's not my hat. It's my child's hat. Any votes? What does the stream say? Tyler's won, clearly.
Too tall hat. This is the only vote I see.
We have a winner. Someone likes my hat. It is a genuine pirate hat. Absolutely genuine. Sized for a 3-year-old. Well, that was the stream then, I guess. We'll do another one.
So what is our final score? What is our disagreement counter?
15, and apparently I cheated. It's a cheating one. Shocking.
What is cheating? I'm not sure.
Shocking. I read one of the charts. I read petrol pump.
So one last thing, which obscure BBS can we download OpenTTD from?
Oh, I don't know. It's some kind of game service that it's on, but apparently it's not really worth bothering with, so I wouldn't. But something like diesel or some other kind of fuel. Have you heard of it?
Not really.
No.
Can't imagine there's many players on there.
I just searched for it. It's probably out. It's about time for a release, isn't it? Have you heard anything good in the current release? I mean, it's pretty hard to find out what's coming up, but are there any good features?
But so first of all, you can actually kind of get just the release from the homepage. There's actually no point bothering to put in it somewhere else.
Yeah. Waste of time. Shouldn't do it. I heard it might be a little bit faster, amongst other things. I think that's quite nice, especially if you're a Mac user.
Well, your towns that you hate the idea of them growing have more ways to grow.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they do. And you can grow
feature.
them much on fast forward. You can now grow them much faster. So that's nice. It's good. Wow, thank you for doing the stream. It's nice to have new contributors. It's good. Particularly fine hats and
before we leave,
good
if
content.
I can, Andy, I want to let guys know next week we will have another stream, a Q&A stream. So I would say for everyone to tune in if you have any questions you want answered by us.
Excellent. I've got loads of questions. So when I said I'll be there. What time? When is that? What day is that? Do we know? Have we announced it yet?
Friday, same time.
Friday, same time.
Go.
Happy days. Right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks to those in the chat. Thanks to those who released 1.11 on an obscure gaming service. And next Friday, back again.